share my screen. So say welcome everyone. So glad to have you here. The census came out since our last meeting, so lots of things have happened. This is a really good time to be working on fair maps because there's a lot going on and a lot that we can be involved with and make an impact on. So really glad to see you all here tonight. And we're going to shuffle things around a little bit today so we can be flexible and go with the flow. Carlene's going to go first so she can get to what she needs to do next. And then I may divide up the team updates so that we can be sure to be done with our guest speakers, Dale and Tim, by 7:30. So a couple people on the team updates who have slides near the end. If you don't mind, we might come back to those after our guest speakers. So I appreciate everyone's flexibility with that. So we'll dive right in with Carlene's statewide updates first. Here we go.
All right. So I just want to shout out this team, the other teams around the state, because the activism that we have been engaged in is really having impact. There was some Represent Us polling that came out today. It's not public yet, but it's really overwhelming that people across the board, no matter the party, are really behind fairness and a fair process, and they don't want gerrymandered maps, and that's because we've been raising awareness. And the legislature giving us a nod by saying, we want your input. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So thank you for everything that you're doing. It's a good thing. We are having a legislative lobby day. If you haven't heard about it, please sign up. It's going to be all virtual. It was going to be a hybrid event, and we just decided, forget it. COVID is not gone, and we need to not pretend like things are normal. So the sign up is there, and there will also be trainings prior to that. So you can go to the next one. Our goals for the day are to have someone to visit every state assembly and Senate, have every state assembly district represented, which means every state Senate district will be represented. We will be in teams of no less than 3, lobbying legislators to take up and support the People's Maps Commission maps and to support the nonpartisan redistricting bills that have been proposed. We want to get the attention of the media, and we want to figure out where legislators stand and also continue to build the case for fair maps. The morning portion, if you want to go to the next one, the morning portion of the day we'll hear from some folks in the morning. We're still working on the keynote. We're trying to get somebody who's going to be really motivating. And so that's important. Senator Jeff Smith will be talking about the importance of constituent activism. Sachin will be reviewing talking points. Then people will be in breakout rooms to meet with their teams by Senate district. Hopefully you will already have met with them, and this will just be a review. Then we'll come back to the large group, have you just make sure everybody has all their questions answered, especially if there's anything that happens between now and that day that means anything's different, just make sure everybody knows. And then the appointments in the afternoon will be 30-minute appointments at 1, 2, 3, and 4 o'clock. I have a small group of folks in Dane County who are making those phone calls to arrange the visits. There'll be roles in each group: facilitator, note taker, storytellers, and questioner. And as I said before, we'll be having pre-lobby day training sessions. You only need to come to one of those. You don't need to come to all 3. So pick the date that works best for you, and please sign up. We have several of the assembly districts in your area that don't have anybody signed up yet, and we want to make sure that all of the assembly districts are covered. So these are the training dates. The next week from tomorrow is in the afternoon. Then the Thursday following will be in the evening, and the Wednesday following will also be in the evening. So please sign up for one of those. And there was a little confusion. If you sign up for a training, doesn't mean you're registered for the lobby day. You got to register for the lobby day, and then actually in the confirmation email, the links to all of these are in that as well. So when you get, please sign up for the day itself. Okay, I think that's it on the lobby day. Yeah. And
Have
unless
a go
anybody has
above
any
and
questions.
beyond, Carlene.
What?
Just- I have an above and
Oh,
go above
yes,
and
go ahead.
beyond, if you don't mind, real quick. So if anyone's coming to one of those trainings and they're willing to do role play as a legislator, so we're in those trainings, we'll go through, you know, what everyone's role needs to be, and then we'll go into breakout sessions. And if anyone's willing to play the role of the legislator, maybe we should recruit Dale and Tim for this.
That's exactly what I was thinking. They could give you a little lesson on how to be the legislator.
Yeah. So if anyone's willing to play that role in these little breakout sessions, just put it in the chat or send me an email and I'll sign you up. We especially need more folks for that first one, Friday, September 10th. So let me know if that's a possibility.
Thanks, Janelle.
Yeah.
And then the legislature, as I mentioned before, the legislature has acknowledged that public input is something that they need, and that is due to our activism and our work. So the page is live. There were some, it didn't go live till yesterday afternoon, and then today there were some technical glitches. It went down, it's back up. Dan Folkman and Mary Kay Baum are working on a new video like the one they did before. You may have seen it, that showed you how to make maps. This one's going to show you how to go to the Districtor website, get the map you made for the People's Maps Commission, download what you need to do, and then go to the legislative site and upload that map. I did it today, and it was not difficult at all. Dan Russler is also going to write step-by-step instructions. He did this before with screenshots of the pages. And there will also be a workshop next Tuesday, the 7th at 7 p.m. The Zoom link is there that I'll be conducting. And then the folks from the National Redistricting Foundation, Caroline Hutton, is going to do 3 of them. And as soon as I have that information, I will send that as well to Janelle and she'll get that out to you. So the site is live. It's super important that we submit. You can go to the next one. It's super important that we submit maps. This is really kind of a double-edged sword. And so I want to make sure that you understand why it's so important. We've asked for a process that's transparent, that takes into account public input, that does not, that creates compact, contiguous districts, that respects municipality and county lines, and respects communities of interest. It's important to know that without our input, the legislature can say, well, we asked for input and nobody gave it. So we need to be part of that process. What we need to also understand is that their number 3 and 4 plan values are all about keeping the current map. Core constituency and measuring, having as few people move as possible means keeping the lines as close to what they are as possible. The same with staggered term disenfranchisement. That means, and Dale would be familiar with this, if you're in a Senate district and you didn't get to vote this time, like folks in Jeff Smith's district didn't get to vote this time, right? It was the even numbers and he's an odd number, or it's the other way around, I don't remember. But then the next time the opposite gets to vote, and if you were moved out of his district into a different district, you might not get to vote again. Staggered term disenfranchisement has never been considered in any lawsuits on any maps in the state of Wisconsin, and there have been lots of lawsuits. For 4 cycles, the maps were decided by federal court judges. That was never one of the things that they considered. Also, core constituency is something that has been considered, but it's important to remember that in 2011, over 50% of constituents were switched into a new district, and there were more county splits than ever before in the history of districting in our state. So the lawsuits that have been brought against the maps, the current maps that we have by Law Forward and by the Democracy Docket, are all about saying the maps that we have are terrible, they're gerrymandered by any measure, they're gerrymandered, we need to start over. The will petition is all about keeping the maps that we have and changing them as little as possible. So what we need to do is submit maps. The lawyers are doing something else over there. we need to continue to build the case in the court of public opinion and put our community of interest and assembly map plans into this. And they're also asking for congressional plans. They are not asking for Senate district plans, just so you know. This is a how-to. You can go to the next one. This is a how-to. I went through part of this last night, and then my computer was so slow that I didn't do the upload part. So I didn't get to see until today that when you upload your map, number 8 there, you get a unique ID, and then you can check later in the submission list to make sure that your map is there. For most of today, my map had a processing error. I kept checking. Now that error has been corrected and mine is complete. So if you go to the site and you look right now on this submission list, there are 2 maps, my map and Joe Handrick's map. And you may know that Joe Handrick had a big hand in creating the maps that we have right now. So super, super, super important that we submit maps. So again, there'll be trainings on this, there'll be videos, and that's it. That's all I have for you.
Thank you so much, Carlene. Always great to get your updates, and enjoy your evening.
Thanks. Yeah, my brother and sister-in-law, who we've hardly seen, and my mother are coming, should be arriving any minute now. So I got done and they're not here yet. So yay.
Perfect. All right.
Have a great evening.
Thank you,
Take
Carlene.
care. Bye.
Bye. So, I'll send these slides out tonight or tomorrow, so you'll have this to-do list. Also, our how-to list, I should say. And also at our next round of Mappy Hours, we will gladly walk anyone through this in person. So if anybody feels like they don't want to investigate this on their own, come to a Mappy Hour and we'll help you do it, and it'll be a piece of cake. So back to our WWNVD. I'm excited to announce that I have a colleague. So Jay Skinner is a new hire for PC Grow, and as you know, WWNVD is a project of PC Grow. So this is his new role, and I'll let Jay take a moment to introduce himself.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. So I'm excited to be working with Janelle. And my role will be as an organizer for this project, helping to lead WWNVD as I slowly take on more responsibilities. And I'll be specifically managing communications as well as technology behind the scenes for PC Grow.
Yeah, so welcome, Jay. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
So I think you all probably have heard through a lot of communications happening what is going on. We're expecting in the next couple of weeks or 2-3 weeks to get some sample district maps from the PMC. So watch for that happening soon. The legislative portal is now open and 3 lawsuits have been filed, which we'll talk about in a minute. So we're really moving right along on our time frame here. And last meeting, I asked some of you to help us create a strategy for us for the rest of the year, September to December. And I want to say a big, huge thank you. We had about 12 people total participate in creating a new strategy. So really nice to have that many people give their input. And so here are our 2 areas of work for now until the end of the year. One is we continue our pressure on legislature. You'll hear more about this, but Carlene already mentioned it, the lobby day. And then a second part of it is supporting the PMC and just continuing to elevate this issue in the court of public opinion. As you heard Carlene say, it's already making a huge impact. So we want to redouble our efforts. So we're going to I have Mappy Hour 2.0 here, but we're actually going to call them Mappy Hour second round. So those will be coming up between September 25 and October 14th. We're going to have a team that analyzes and evaluates maps. So Sarah will tell you about Mappy Hour, Don will tell you about analyzed maps. We have a whole group of teams that are working on communications things. So writing in the paper, you're going to hear from Michael. Burma Shave signs, you're going to hear from Maureen, and video, you'll hear from Bob. So a lot of things going on, a slight little restructure to get us through the end of the year. And now we'll jump right into hearing from team members. So we'll start with Anne.
Hi, well, the goals remain the same for the legislative team. We're trying to convince the legislators to vote for the fair maps this year. And we're trying to get that nonpartisan redistricting committee bill to have a public hearing so it can go to the floor of the legislature for a vote. And so to do that, the thing we've been working on in July and August is a postcard campaign. We had a goal of 1,000 by the end of August. We got 880. Not bad, but there's still time to write postcards if anybody's interested. And in fact, Irene is going to do some more postcarding in St. Croix Falls in the coming weeks. So if anybody is still interested in trying to write postcards, let me know. I did write our legislators today that we were sending the postcards to say, hey, you got this many postcards in your mailbox in July and August, because I want them to acknowledge the fact that they did get a lot of communication from Western Wisconsin. I don't want them to say that they never heard anything about this issue. So I'm pretty positive about this. It was fun to do. And excuse me. So Carlene already talked about Fair Maps Lobby Day. We are trying to get together teams of people. I said 4 to 5. Carlene said the more the merrier. So if you are available on September 27th, it's virtual and can meet with a legislator if they agree, or maybe an aide. There is the training, and we really need volunteers for the following legislators. Zimmerman probably has enough people who are willing to talk to him, but more is better. But if you or anyone you know is willing to sign up to talk with these legislators on that day, it's really important. We have to show we care. We can't have nobody sign up, even if these legislators find that they are unavailable that day. And if they are unavailable that day, we will try to meet with them somehow at some point in the future in October. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Really great work. And the postcards were super fun. Okay, Carol Skinner prepared this slide for me, but she's on a plane right now. So I'm going to do my best to give you my version of Carol Skinner. So we have 3 cases currently going through the courts. All these were filed. I think the first one was on the day the census came out, and then in the next couple of weeks. So Hunter versus Boltzmann, that is 6 Democratic voters in the federal court that are just acknowledging that because of the census data coming out, our current maps are don't give one person one vote, and so they're unconstitutional. Block and Spindle, this is the Law Forward lawsuit, and they're asking that the case for the maps go directly to the federal court. And then Will, Carol says our buddy Will, not. You may remember them from the rules change petition from a while back, which got denied. But they're similar version of what they asked for before. They're asking that it go to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And then they're also doing this same original action like they did last time, where they don't want it to go through the lower courts first. They want it to go straight to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So that's what's happening. And I'll put this link in the follow-up email, but there's a really fun 8-minute video that Debbie Patel told me about. That's the main attorney from Will and the main attorney from Law Forward talking for 8 minutes on a news show about the pros and cons of their approach. So it's a fun listen, and it's very approachable. So be sure to check that out when I send the links out later. And now I'll pass it over to Sarah.
And I even remembered to unmute myself. So you probably have heard already about the Mappy hours, but since we just completed them in July and have the numbers for that whole effort, We basically did a bunch of MAPI hours between June and July, and you can see the dates and the locations there in the little bubbles. The grand total for the for our group was 166, which was pretty spectacular, I think, considering the total for all of Wisconsin was 798. Now, there may have been some more posted in August, but I don't have those numbers. So that's it for that. But we are now starting a second round of MAPI hours, as Janelle mentioned, that will run from September 25th to October 14th. We already have a couple dates set, Hop and Barrel and Rush River, but more will be scheduled for other counties. We hope that we'll hit all of the counties. And these will be more focused on how to support the PMC in giving feedback on the maps that will be presented whenever they're ready. I think that's pretty soon, but so they will be preparing these maps, assembling maps, district maps, and we'll want to get some public feedback. So that what we thought we would do is go back to the format that really worked for us for the community of interest maps, and try to interact with people again in these breweries and bars, and get their input on whether they think that the maps are that are presented are fair, which ones they like best. And Don has a lot of ideas about how to do that, but we're still finalizing. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Sarah. And now, Don.
Yeah, I changed the title on this, Janelle.
Yeah, I was confused. I'm like, oh,
Wisconsin Map Assessment Project, or WeMap, sort of like the We Act. This came out of the planning for the MAPI Hour second round of, it's just new. It's like a week old. Formed a 6-member team. This is an experiment in working hand in hand with another coalition member, North Shores, and a guy down in Dane County who represents the Verona Action Team. And what we're trying to do is find as many Wisconsin redistricting maps to analyze and evaluate and use those results to advocate for quality maps. Beyond anti-gerrymandering, if I could say that. What's the good of this? Well, if we have as many maps as we can gather together, we get context for the maps that are going to come out of the PMC, for the maps that are going to come out of the legislature. And we're going to find out what's possible, what isn't. So it's just great to have a group of maps to compare what's coming out of these organizations. We all of us attended a webinar yesterday or the day before, sponsored by Charge, that showed us how grassroots organizations can actually analyze and evaluate maps. We don't have to leave it to other experts. We can become experts ourselves. And that's what we plan to do. We're going to become experts. What's the value? We're going to give informed feedback to the PMC drafts. That's the first goal, okay? So PMC is going to give us some draft forms of their maps. And we'd like to say, yeah, this is what's good in these maps, and this is why. And this is what, well, maybe you could consider changing, and this is why. I'm looking forward to that. When we do lobby day, you just don't want to go into the legislature and say, I support the PMC maps. Why? Well, because the PMC has done a great job in transparency and getting public input. But then the legislature might say, well, what's beyond that? And then if you understand what we're doing here, you can say, well, they've got great compactness. They've got great minimal county splitting, and, you know, partisan fairness is not too bad here either. So if you want to go beyond just supporting the PMC maps and getting into the details of them, which they have, the commission has, then we'll give you some tips on how to do that. That's
Thank
it.
you. Awesome. And I think we'll go to Michael and then we'll take a break and go to, actually, Dale, can I ask you real quick, is Tim joining tonight? Do you know? Because I
believe he is.
Okay, we'll just wait a few more minutes. I haven't seen him yet, but I think he'll be here soon. So, Michael.
Our kind of newly configured and charged writing team had one organizational meeting, and I think we're trying to come up with an efficient way to coordinate this effort to get the most sort of bang for our writing buck. And that is getting things written hasn't proved to be the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is getting it into all the publications that we can identify in Western Wisconsin. Any one of us typically can only submit to our own local paper. Any one of us that writes something can only typically submit to our own paper, and our papers only accept so many letters from any one of us on the same topic. So the idea here is to try to come up with a way to push this out in an organized way to all the publications we can identify. So we've identified, or we've set up a system where we hope to have media liaisons assigned to each publication that we can identify that would be the primary facilitator of getting these submissions, the letters to the editor, guest editorials, articles, into those local media outlets. And they would also have the secondary role of trying to build a stronger relationships with the editors of those papers. Jay is going to sort of be our media relations czar, and he'll be doing the tracking and coordinating of this, some of the research to make sure our media list is current and accurate and comprehensive. And he'll also be the link to the social media group. We've begun putting together a messaging calendar so that we can stay on message as we move through the next several weeks and couple of months. And then I think where we'd like to be is to the point where when we decide that we have a message to send, there's just an organized sort of I call it a flow chart, but an organized process by which the letter gets written, it gets reviewed and edited. It gets pushed out to media liaisons and then pushed out into publications. So we're hoping that this level of coordination will make us sort of more effective in getting all the good writing that's being done actually in front of eyeballs across Western Wisconsin constituents.
Thank you, Michael. And maybe I'll just make a quick plug for anyone who subscribes to a newspaper. If you want to be a media liaison, just contact Jay. And Jay, if you want to put your email address in the chat, maybe for folks, but feel free to send a note to Jay to ask for more details or volunteer or anything like that. So we have some papers covered, but not all yet, especially Barron, Buffalo, Pepin, Dunn are all counties where we're lacking some media liaisons. So let us know. Awesome. So I'm going to skip ahead, Maureen and Bob, if you don't mind. We'll come back to you. And what I'd like to do is Tim has joined, and so we'll go over to hearing from Dale and Tim now, and then we'll come back to the rest. So I'll stop sharing. And I just want to give a big, huge welcome to Dale Schultz and Tim Cullen. For those of you who have been with our group for a while, you may remember that they were our first guest speakers in our first meeting that we had guest speakers, which was August of last year. So exactly 13 months later, here they are again, and really good timing given all of that's happening in the legislature and the portal and everything. So welcome, Tim and Dale, and I might let you guys just introduce yourselves and share your remarks, and then maybe we can have a little bit of time for questions at the end.
Tim, are you going to go first? Tim. Hello?
Don't touch anything.
Tim?
Go ahead, Dale. No,
I can't. Tim.
Tim is still on mute.
Okay, well, I could go first till Tim gets on.
got it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, hi, Tim Cullen, happy to be with you again. In COVID ways, we're together. Dale and I, as you probably know, we've been going around the state together since 2013, after we saw the true effects of the 2011 gerrymander on the 2012 election. There's been enormous progress by the citizens of Wisconsin to understand gerrymandering. We used to have to, in 2013, we used to have to explain what the word gerrymandering meant. We had to explain who Elbridge Gerry was. And that's because for at least 60 years, there had not been a gerrymander in Wisconsin. And so, but as we kept going around the state from 2013 on, by about 2017 or so, I would say, Dale, the citizenry was educated. We didn't have to begin with a definition of gerrymandering. They wanted to know what they could do to stop it. That's how far we could feel our audiences move in those 4 years or so. Dale and I do this together. I'm a former Democratic majority leader of the state Senate. He's a former Republican majority leader of the state Senate. We go together on this because we totally agree on this matter. The gerrymandering has to stop. And I must say, it sometimes sounds surprising to people, but gerrymandering is not a partisan issue. Gerrymandering is an abuse of power issue. It looks like it's a Republican that like gerrymandering in Wisconsin because they've got total control in Wisconsin, and the political parties can't help it when they have total control of both houses and the governor. They can't help themselves. They abuse it and gerrymander. So if you could go to Wisconsin, you can go to Michigan, you can go to North Carolina, you will find total Republican control, big Republican gerrymanders. But I, as a Democrat, must tell you that you can go to Massachusetts, you can go to Rhode Island, you can go to Maryland, and you can go to Illinois, and I can show you a Democratic gerrymander because the Democrats had complete control of those states. So it's something that just has to go and be stopped, and that's why we go around and do this together. Last thing I mentioned before I turn it over to Dale is sort of my speculation on what's going to happen the rest of this year and be finalized sometime in the first half of 2022. First of all, Republicans will pass a map through the legislature. It may be pretty similar to today. It may be slightly less of a gerrymander than today, so it looks like they're being fair. It'll be vetoed by Governor Evers. His veto will be sustained because the Republicans don't have 2/3, and then it'll end up in the courts. And in fact, unlike previous decades, we already have legal actions filed in both state and federal court on this issue. In the past decades and decades, you didn't go to court until there was some kind of a impasse, and we didn't know what to do because the legislature and governor couldn't agree, so they turned it over to the courts. Now they're front-ending the court process. My suspicion is, prediction, you can hold it against me now, is I think what will finally happen is that somehow there will be maps drawn that are slightly less gerrymandered than today, but still gerrymandered. That's what I think finally happens, whatever court deals with it. I'd like to be wrong. I'd like to see them do it completely in a fair maps way. But I think that's asking for too much in the political environment we live in, but we'll see. That's my prediction, and I'll be happy to turn this over to the big guy. You guys can't tell right now, but I thought at 5'11" I was a fairly tall guy until I started going around the state with 6'6" Dale Schultz. So I always hated standing next to him because I looked like his little brother. But anyway, hi Dale.
Hi, Tim. Well, let me just begin by saying I sit here on this Zoom in awe in all of you, because Tim is right. We remembered when this was a very lonely educational effort, and it has been a joy to watch the growth of the people of this state as they've understood the issue and the speed with which that whole effort has accelerated because of the efforts of your group and every single person in the group. And as I listen to you talk about how we're going to get over the finish line by sharpening our focus on members of the legislature and the public, I simply could never have dreamed that the effort would have come this far. But let me just say, as much as I am in awe, I am well aware that a lot more work has to be done. And along those lines, I just want to give a couple cautionary notes that I wish that you would consider. One of the things that has really impressed me about your efforts and our fellow citizens' efforts is the educational effort that has gone on with the local units of government. We have well past 50 county boards that have passed resolutions and recommendations. And I don't remember that ever happening before. There are a lot of people who paid attention to this issue who have constituencies and who are now vested for the first time in their lives. And I think it is critically important that we make an extra special effort to not let them drift away, that we continue to communicate with them and give them a chance to participate. Because I think, and this is my second point, where we're going to have a chance in the future on this is on process. Yes, Tim talked to you about a product that he believes will come out. I'm not so sure I agree with him or disagree with him. I just don't know. But I do know this, that our great hope in front of the United States Supreme Court was dashed because of process. The court, took a look and said, you don't have standing. And as much as I'm upset about that, it's bogus. I know this, that we can, if we think through this, and it's pretty evident to me that there are a lot of smart people, meaning you and the rest of our activists around the state, have thought through about the process. We have to be able to demonstrate to the courts and to the public that every effort has been made to be inclusive, to listen in a very respectful and a thoughtful way, in a totally transparent way. And if we are able to get that message across, I think it becomes very difficult for a federal or a state court to do anything but the right thing on this. And you've gotten us there almost all the way, but we can't leave one element out there. We have to think this through and let people know that there isn't any way to hide on this. Now, I agree. I don't think we're going to see a huge sea change in the legislature. I think we've come a long way. We do have some legislators who have stood up, but where we have to win now is in the court of public opinion in the state, and that means we have to have our act together. Our message has to be clear, and we have to have people repeating that message to those same institutions. So that's my pitch. Again, thank you. This has made an effort for Tim and I over the last 8 years really worthwhile to see what you've done, and it's really reinvigorated my faith in democracy.
Well, thank you. And I dare to think that we might not be here if it weren't for all the groundwork that was set before us by the two of you. So should we open it up for questions now, or any? Dale, Tim, is that a good timing?
Sure, I think this would be great.
Awesome, thank you. So we're a small group, just take yourself off of mute and go ahead and ask away, or raise your hand if you want, but otherwise just go ahead.
You're okay. I have a question. Do you have any advice, further advice on what the best way to sway a congressperson is, or a legislature person is?
Well, we both were one.
Right.
That I actually had a district that leaned Republican when it started, but you can still overcome it if it's if you have a good campaign and so on issues. But I think you have to figure out if you can, who the legislator listens to. Sometimes it's pretty clear they aren't listening to the general public. But I don't think they like reading negative stuff about themselves, especially in letters to the editor. People still do read newspapers or online, if not holding on to them. And I think a never-ending barrage of letters from several, not the same person writing. I think usually they limit how many times you can write a month, but just keep writing and asking, why is legislator representative so-and-so against a gerrymandering reform when his county voted 72% to change, or whatever the percent might have been. I think that, it's not the only thing, but I do think that they don't like getting beat up all the time, day after day when they pick up the paper. And so I think, I don't mean beat up in a physical sense, of course. I think we ought to get them darn scared that that the message is clear that X percent of their district or their county voted to change to another system where the politicians don't draw the maps, and Representative so-and-so refuses to be for it. And because he's now being exposed in front of his own people, it isn't somebody from somewhere else saying something. You're pointing out to people in his district that his own constituents said that needs to change, and he's refusing to do it. I would just pound and pound on that.
I think that's a great message, but I also want to say that I think humor is probably the most potent thing that we can do when we communicate. And whoever's in charge of the Burma shave signs, I go right on. It's a great way. It gets people talking. And what we really want to do at the end of the day with all these letters to the editors and signs and leaflets and the like is to get people talking to each other on Facebook. But, the one thing that I think we're going to see is we're going to see a very tribal reaction. They're going to be an attempt to be very aggressive and bully folks. And I think we have to be of good cheer, and we have to be factual, steady, and calm. And we have to remind people that's who we are, that what we're really interested in is in making sure everybody has a fair break. And our county boards recognize that, our village administrators or our village officials have recognized it because they listen to the people too. And now we want people to know that we're out there fighting for them, but they have to take that last step and stand up and communicate to our legislative leaders that it's time for a change, it's time for leadership, and we're tired of this negative, nasty stuff that doesn't get anything for anyone other than a few people who want to clamor for power. We want effective governance, we want good government, and we want a transparent government. So stand up and do the right thing.
Thank you. Both of those answers were so helpful.
Thanks. Pat, did you have a question?
Pat, you're on mute.
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, anyway, I changed my question. When you talk about, presenting the fact that the great majority of people, over 70%, support the cause of gerrymandering. I just wondering, if we can utilize maybe a visual approach when we email our representatives and senators, maybe kind of put together like some pictorial, what do you call those? When you send an email, sometimes you got these things you post, like pictures of stuff and like graphs and stuff. Would that be one of the ways we can try to, convince these legislators that we can, okay, here is it in paper, it's right here in, on these charts, on these graphs, that says this is what the people are saying. Do you think that would be effective when we email our legislators to use that kind of approach? maybe attach something like this to the email?
I think it would be very effective. And what I would only suggest is that that process begins before the meetings so that you can go in there and say, look, we're trying to be as fair as we can. We're presenting facts. We're presenting them to you. But you know what? We're counting on you to do the right thing. But we're making certain that the public is there to ensure that, in fact, you colleagues do the right thing. So be a hero, stand up, do the right thing. And I think you'll be surprised at how much people reward you. And for your colleagues, don't accuse them, I'd say. For your colleagues who want to be selfish, I think the public is going to see it, they're going to know it, and they're going to suffer the consequences. But we want you to do the right thing, and we want you to know that you're not going to be alone. There is a groundswell of information coming already, and it's only going to increase.
Also, I would say on that is to don't just communicate solely with your legislator, whether it's email or whatever, because a legislator sitting comfortably in a gerrymandered seat doesn't care that you disagree with them. But what he or she will care about is if you send your communication to the legislator and share it every which way you can, every which way in technology you can, or a newspaper or whatever. Because what's going on, I've talked to lots of people, is legislators in gerrymandered districts just don't care what people send to them, but disagrees with them because they don't have to care, because they know the election in their district was decided the day the maps were drawn, and they know that. So just if it's just you sending to them, it'll blow you off and you'll never hear from them again or whatever. But if you share with everybody else what you've told him or her, then it starts to be a problem for them.
Especially if what is said to them and told to them is respectful and factual. People sometimes in politics think the public is dumb. They're not dumb. They're smart. They're very smart. And they have their own minds. And when those facts are clearly presented in a respectful and thoughtful way, when the response is callous and non-transparent, they're going to get the message. And yes, there are some people we're never going to reach because, they just don't want to be confused by any new information. But for those vast majority of people who are open-minded, curious, and want better government, we have to feed them what they want. And that is a thoughtful process that's going to yield for them better government.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
I have a quick question. Both Tim and Dale talked about being forthright in letters to the editor. I haven't done a careful analysis of our letters to the editor, but I think we've been maybe going too far in being nonpartisan. We haven't really been naming names as much as just talking about the broader issue and why it's a problem and how it affects democracy. So especially Tim, it sounds like you think we should hammer away and be more forthright. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, you heard me correctly, but what I didn't say is I agree with Dale. Make sure that you're polite and use good language. People sometimes lose their argument by the way they make it.
Sure.
But I'm sure that you know that. But it can make a difference, and especially if the legislator knows that you're sharing what you're sharing with him, you're sharing it with a bunch of other people too. They like getting reelected. That's why they like gerrymandered maps. I mean, what a great deal. You pass one bill in 2011 and you guarantee yourself a job for 10 years. I don't think very many of you folks there can, by your own actions, guarantee yourself your own job, unless you own the company or whatever. You can't guarantee yourself a job for 10 years. These folks have figured out a way to do it. It's called gerrymandering.
Dale, do you have anything to add to that?
I would completely concur. I think it's entirely appropriate and fair to name a name, but I think, as Tim said, we have to recognize that the real audience that we're aiming for here, as much as any legislator, because we're not naive about how politics work, it's those independent voters out there who are going to cast their votes in the next election. And we, legislators aren't dumb. They're going to know that's who we're speaking to. And if we do it in a thoughtful way, we're going to force them to meet us on a level playing field where we talk about facts and reality. And by name calling and being snarky, we lose that opportunity and we lose that respect. But I really believe that if this is done right, and especially as Tim said, if it's shared through Twitter or Facebook or whatever, go here and see this video. You have to see this. The more we get this discussion going, and the more people see for themselves, I think the better chance we have, because we're not just sitting in the basement in our underwear name calling people, which turns so many people off. This is intelligent, thoughtful stuff, and we want you to be a part of it. Take a look. I think you're going to be impressed, and let's improve our community, our state, for everyone.
One last thing I might add to that is that in my home county, Rock County, the referendum passed 80-20. I think we were the first county to actually get out of the 70s and get to 80. And by putting it in context, Rock County is about a 60% Democratic county now, 60-40. So 40% of Rock County is made up of Republican voters. That tells you something, that when the referendum passed 80-20, either a lot of those Republicans voted for reform or didn't vote at all because they didn't want to vote against their own party's position or whatever. So there is not only the independents Dale talked about, who we want to reach and persuade and inform, but there are a lot of Republicans who are very unhappy with what they see. And one of the things that they don't like, a lot of them, is gerrymandering, and it's showing up in these referendums. I mean, some of these counties that voted in the 70s are practically 70-30 Republican counties, 65-35. So there's enormous unhappiness with this process of gerrymandering amongst Republicans as well as independents, and of course, almost every Democrat.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to run real quickly, but I wanted to just add one last thing. In the letters to the editor and in the technological messages, make sure that we remind people that we're going to let them know how their legislators voted. And the legislators will know that they're not going to be able to hide in secret and cast a vote and nobody will remember. We need to say to them, we're coming back. We're going to tell you because we want you to be able to either to do the right thing at election time so that they can make an informed vote at election time, put it that way. So I'm going to have to go. Thank you again so very much for all of your hard work. You truly have done a wonderful thing for Wisconsin, and I am so proud of every one of you.
Thank you so much, Dale. Really appreciate having you here. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
And when Dale says you, he of course means you who are on this call, but we've been doing these Zoom meetings around the state, and that you he's talking about is a whole lot of people just like you all over the place in southeastern Wisconsin, up in the Fox Valley, up north, more northwest where you folks are. So this really is a grassroots thing that's going here, and grassroots things. I mean, you think of most of the great progress in our country, it comes from the bottom up. I don't think women got the right to vote because a bunch of men in Washington decided they just soon let them vote. It was a women's movement that began in 1848, and they finally won in 1920. We do not intend to have this take whatever that was, 72 years for in this case, but it was won from the bottom up, and so will this.
Excellent. Thank you. Do we have time for one last question? Are there any other questions? Any thoughts on the bill that is the bills that are in committee and perhaps never getting a hearing? Any advice or thoughts on that?
That's, it sounds like a broken record, but you couldn't do that if you had a competitive assembly seat or a Senate seat. You wouldn't get away with just sitting on bills. If you were the chairman, the chairperson would get all kinds of heat, but they get themselves, but their members would be getting heat too about why are we sending you down there and paying you money to just refuse to even have a hearing on a public matter that some legislator cared enough to introduce a bill on. I think that's a great thing to hammer away on. It's like I say, it's a broken record to say, well, it's because of gerrymandering, but almost everything that doesn't happen the way the general public, the majority wants, you can go back and point a pretty clear finger at gerrymandering.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insights and for being here. It's really an honor for us to have you, and the insights are so useful. So thank you very much.
Well, it's an honor for us. It's an honor for me. It's nice to have people want to know what a 77-year-old guy has to say. So thank you very much.
Still very relevant, Tim. Still very relevant.
I was hoping you'd run again.
I've had people tell me that, and I always just say, why don't you?
Yeah, a whole 10 years younger, I'd go for it.
Well, and somebody will say to me, well, Senator Risser just retired at 92. What's your problem? I've run into that one too. But I think I'll keep doing a bunch of this stuff. I got 3 foundations I started in Janesville, all related to public education, and they take up a lot of my time. And this takes some of my time, and I'm doing a lot of things I really enjoy.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thanks again. And maybe we'll jump back into our team updates. So thank you.
Thanks,
and feel
Tim.
free to stay or check out either, whatever you prefer.
Thank you.
So we'll jump back into our team updates. I'm going to share my screen again, and let's go to Maureen and Burma Shave Signs. Oh, you're on mute. Here we go.
Sorry. Okay. As it says, we're assessing what materials we already have. That 2 friends and I have, for the past several election cycles, posted Burma Shave signs in our sort of our neighborhood. And so we have several existing signs, and we just painted over what we'd written in the one and painted on the new message and put it back up. And that's our plan. My 2 friends have agreed that this would be a good use for those signs. So we have access to those materials. We have access to the posts, and we've got some of the jingles written, and we've got at least 2 high visibility locations, and then we're going to meet on the 8th of September to talk about when we're going to get started on the sign making. Although if I get those signs over here in the next few days, I may just start at least prepping them. So I feel that this is one of the easier, funner activities. So I promise I'll help with some other stuff too. But thank you for letting me do this.
Thank you, Maureen. All right, Bob.
Yes, thanks, Janelle. So looking backward, we took part in what is called a tweet storm on October 12th. And I thought that was very interesting. So it was from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock that afternoon, tweeting out messages with hashtag Fair Maps for All. And it was so interesting to me that entire organization, so nationwide, not just in Wisconsin, nationwide reached number 11 in the top trending hashtags. So that's not the top Wisconsin hashtags, that's not the top political hashtags, number 11 in the country. So that illustrates how much power a relatively small group can wield. There is a downside. Immediately after 2 o'clock, when this scheduled activity ended, it just plummeted. So that tells me there wasn't organic traction. There wasn't traction with people that don't know about this, but it's a good and a bad story. You know, a lot of visibility from those of us that are already in it, but still very difficult to pull new people in. We've also begun and will continue advertising for the Legislative Lobby Day. Some of the testimonials that were videotaped at various MAPI hours. And down at the bottom, I've included some instructions there. If anyone wants to record their own 30-second testimonial, I know how to do it with captions, and that's key because a lot of people don't turn on the sound when they view these things. With captions on your iPhone, there's an app embedded in your iPhone called Clips. If you go to the effects and select live titles, you can just speak and it will create the captions. And then if it makes any errors in that, you can edit that text later. So you have that power right now in your pocket if you have an iPhone. If anyone knows if that can be done with an Android phone, please contact me and let me know. I would share those instructions in the future. Upcoming, we've got Jay Skinner joining our team. We'll be advertising, we'll be sending out social media activity or notices for the MAPI Hours Round 2. And talking with a friend, I am trying an experiment. I've just begun trying to get responses from people with large followings. So I sent a tweet directed at Giannis Antetokounmpo. So he is a basketball player with the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks. I got no response, but I've got a list of people that have a large presence in Wisconsin, and I may have to send out 100 tweets, but if I get one of them to reply, that is more eyes than we could get any other way. So that's just an ongoing experiment. That's all I got, Janelle.
Thanks, Bob. Love all the new ways you're exploring technology. So thanks. And so we're going to skip past that. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jay for our upcoming events. Are you frozen, Jay? I can't. No, you're there. Okay.
Okay, upcoming, we've got the Just Say No event on the 13th of this, I think that's next week, on next Monday. A special statewide virtual webinar, as most events are these days. It's going to be a mathematician, author of Shape, a book, and law forward attorney Doug Poland and Shachin Cheda, I think that's how you pronounce it. They're going to explain why and how we can just say no to using the existing maps when creating new voting districts. So you can click that link to RSVP, and I'm going to put that link in the chat so that you can actually, well, so you can copy it into a browser. And then the big thing, Lobby Day, coming up on the 27th this month. So you heard a lot about Lobby Day at the beginning of this meeting, and so be sure to sign up for some trainings coming up, as well as look to participate in any of the parts needed where not many people have signed up. Is that about it, Janelle?
Yeah, one last one. Yeah.
Okay. And MAPI Hours second round, which I'm really looking forward to. That's how I got involved in this organization, is by volunteering for MAPI Hours. So very excited for it coming back to Hudson, where I am originally from. And so make sure to put those on your calendar, and I'll be helping to get the ones that are still not scheduled on the calendar as soon as possible. So hope to see you guys all at those, as many as you can make. And of course, our next meeting here being on the 7th of October. Okay, and lastly, I'd like to lead everyone in a mantra of the month to kind of go out with a bang here. Today, we're going to affirm that people have the power, and you can really put the emphasis in the power. As you can see, it's all capitalized. It's going to be very powerful. So I'll count down from 3, and 3, 2, 1.
People have the power. Woo-hoo!
That's the fists stuff.
And listen to Patti Smith's rendition of that in song.
All right. Thanks everyone for a great meeting, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, Jay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.